So all these dogs were colored dogs, well, at least some of them. And some of these dogs made some of the best dogs there is. Now, Mid-Atlantic Kennels was Walter Harler, Paul Nealon, and I think John Lichtard, if I'm not mistaken. And these guys worked together. And then, enthusiasts got into beefs with each other and they separated. But who had the good stuff was Larry Carr had good dogs. Walter Harler had good dogs. Paul Nealon had good dogs. John Lichtard had good dogs. And some of their dogs came colored. At this time, their stuff was really good. Screaming Eagles got dogs. Screaming Eagles started really harshly testing his dogs. He had to because he lived in Alaska. And Alaska's no joke. The wildlife runs around and stuff like that, so he had to really do the testing with his dogs. And his dogs, the ones that lived up there, those were the real deal. Screaming Eagle Kennel was no joke. Phenomenal bulldogs came out of that. But then some really good bulldogs came out of right here in the States. Not saying that Alaska's not a part of the United States, not saying that. But anyway, people started putting their own adjectives into the Johnson dogs. A lot of Neo was bred into the Johnson dog. The sloppy type Neo, not the clean muzzle ones. So certain Johnson dogs were coming out solid black, and there was a blue phase in some of them too. Also, Lana Lou, that lady Lana Lou from the Alapala, the Lahaha, whatever the hell his name, bulldogs, and Johnson did a few breeders, and this is why her dogs started changing. They started looking more Englishly bulldoggy in the face because she did some breeders with Johnson, and it was what it was. And a lot of breeders started getting blue dogs instead of black, instead of fawn, because the traditional color was fawn. There was a lot of fawn. There was of course there was white, but there was solid black dogs too. But again, like I said, these dogs were sold off. The Birdo came in because Blackwell, he did what he did. And a lot of people had Johnson dogs, but they were they vary in size and they difference in looks. You had some Johnson dogs that had a longer muzzle. You had some that had real short muzzles, etc. Some dogs were real hard driven, and others weren't. And people swore by the Johnson dogs. And again, I didn't like it. I like the longer muzzle dogs all the time. But anyway, there was still a lot of health issues with the Johnson dogs. A lot of health issues. So to make a long story short, what I'm about to say. To make a long story short, people started intertwining and interbreeding or whatever. KC and Carl, their magazine is flourishing. So they're directing people in the wrong aspect of the dogs. So now a lot of lies was told about the American Bulldog and its origin. And a lot of people that I mentioned, you never heard about, on some real stuff. Not saying not Paul Nealon and them, but Hedgewood and all these other guys. Bailey and etc. Never heard of these dudes. You know what I'm saying? Until later on, mid-90s and etc. But these dudes were the founder breeders and had these dogs for a long time, like Bill Hines. Bill Hines bought his dogs off a dude, not Sid actually, Stover. Rayburn Stover. And Rayburn has some wicked dogs, extremely hard core American bulldogs, like Bossman and them, or the offshoots of Raven Sturburn's, his breedings. Real tall. And these bulldog men dealt with each other, and people knew what these dogs were. Like I said, the truth wasn't manifested. Some breeders or enthusiasts didn't care, so they kept on with the traditional colored dogs. Because what I was told from a lot of breeders too, that if you continue to breed the white, you're gonna end up with skin problems. And that's exactly what happened. That's what my dog had. She had some skin problems that extended from, I guess with the English bulldog as well. That's where she got that stuff from. But people wasn't doing the OFA at that time, or well, not a lot of dudes. And people started taking the direction with the American Bulldog and Shits and stuff. So a lot of Shits and dogs is coming around and about. Balasol, Tom Rich, and etc. Like, it was a lot of dudes. And dudes starting to mess with the Masher line, started getting Masher dogs, Larry Carver stuff. And them dogs were working. And again, Paul Needham and Walter Holler, both were partners and still good friends. So Walter put my friend John on, because John bought dogs off of Walter. Walter was in the pit bulls as well as his wife, Leslie Holler. And it went from there. And in a nutshell, I didn't know John at this time. I met John through Jim Vigo. Now, like I said, I was this upset that my bulldog wasn't doing what she was supposed to do, and I wanted to get out. This is how I got into Carney Corsos. So I got me a few Corsos, and I was a happy camper for a little while. But then started making a few more phone calls, saw some colored dogs, and called Jim Vigo. Was like, yo, is that an American Bulldog or that's a pit bull? He was like, no, that's an American Bulldog. So we started talking. We was talking about his dog Molly. So then he introduced me to to John Lichtard. I ain't like him too much. Yeah, we didn't get along because he was breeding also band dogs. He had a few American Bulldog pit bull crosses, and he wanted to sell me some for $1,000, and I was like, hell no, like, I'm not buying your dog. No mixed dog for no $1,000. I was like, yo, I could make me some band dogs here. I could take an American Bull, because we got American Bulldogs here. I could take an American Bulldogs, and back then New York was flooded with game dogs, and I had a lot of friends with game dogs. Shoot, family members had game dogs, so I could have took a bulldog and bred that into their stuff, and I'd have had me something. So I was like, yo, like, no. Bottom line, no. So we didn't get along. But then Jim Vigo was a good dude, very good dude, and he introduced me to a lot of breeders. And that basically opened the door for my education, because as I'm starting calling these breeders, one breeder led me to another breeder led me to another breeder, and everybody had their story, and they was giving me basically the history, and I was learning. The best dude that I got a good education from was John Lawrenson from Timblar Kennels. And me and John is like this now. He's not in the Bulldogs no more. And a lot of you enthusiasts better be glad that he's not in the Bulldogs no more, because he be blowing a lot of y'all out the water. John took the Bulldogs to another level. I'm gonna say it again, he took the Bulldogs to another level, like on some real stuff. He did a better job, basically more than Walter Holler. Walter basically gave him a lot of dogs. Me and Walter got to be real cool. Walter was gonna bless me with a lot of dogs like Muggsy. John was gonna bless me with Peggy's son, Ryder. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was on my way to have some of the best Bulldogs. Basically also too on the East Coast, because like I said, I was under the direction, and these dudes were like my teachers. And I made a lot of friends. I made a lot of Bulldog friends. I took a few trips, went down south, shook out, went hog hunting a few times, and it was what it was. And again, learn. Again, John Lawrenson, his ex-wife Tanya, Walter Holler, Leslie Holler. I called Paul a few times. I spoke to Larry Carver. I spoke to Steve LeClaire. And it goes on and on. Kevin Gibson, that's his name, from the dude from Illinois. And Kev had some good dogs. I spoke to him. I spoke to Willie Barnett. Me and Sammy Belly got to be real cool. Me and Chris Kelly got to be real cool. Like, me and a lot of enthusiasts got to be cool. Eric Rowe, etc. So these dog men I knew back then with these American Bulldogs. Jim Edwards I knew. And me and Jim was real cool. And Jim had basically, like I said, all the information. So Jim was putting me on to certain aspects of the dog and etc. So now John actually gets the dogs in the UKC. It was John Lawrenson that did that. He allowed other enthusiasts to come along and they sabotaged it. So now you don't get the dogs, the red dogs with the black mask no more, like once upon a time. And again, I'm telling John, you should have put the blue and tan, not blue and tan, but black and tan and blue color code in there, as well as solid black, because these Bulldogs was coming in that. There was a dog called Cosmo Rock, was a blue brindle dog. Like I said, West Coast, not West Coast, Great White also had a few blue dogs. But now you got Kennedy Bulldogs, and he producing blue dogs, like on some real stuff. It wasn't uncommon back then. It was happening, but it wasn't talked about. But I had a lot of videotapes too, because Freddy Krueger also produced a dark chocolate dog. He bred with a dog named Black Mamba, and they produced a chocolate dog. The dog was beautiful, beautiful. When in the show ring, they denied it, disqualified it, oh, the color code, this and that and the third. But nobody wanted to tell me who owned that dog. But that dog looked it better than his father, like on some real stuff. Blue Freddy and the rest of them Bulldogs out the frame. And a lot of them dogs, temperament wasn't up to par either. So again, people started breeding into the painter stuff, started breeding into the dealy stuff, the master stuff, and trying to, because then also too the white English came up into play. There was a lot of breeders from down south that had cold pedigree dogs. A cold pedigree dog is a dog that has no pedigree, but it's still a pure dog. So these guys claimed that they had their Bulldogs forever, and they were allowed it. They was allowed in, and people bred into those dogs too. Like the Great Cowboy dog, y'all know him from Lynn Miller, and so like I said, it is what it is. So again, people started breeding these dogs all over the place. Down south had their own strain. Up north we had our own strain. Midwest had theirs, and California had theirs. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of dogs were basically scatterbred. So then I was told too, like, yo, man, what you do is you select you a few good dogs and you go from there. So when I found out that where Hans got his dogs from, Raven Stover had some real good dogs in the 90s. Excellent. Even Sammy Belly had some excellent ones. Like, you know what I'm saying? Real good ones. And I was going to go from there. And then Jim Avigo was basically going to give me a Marley puppy. And like I said, I knew the right people. Got out of Bulldogs, got out of Corsos, and this didn't have no dogs for like about a good decade or so. Got back into it again, because I ended up getting the Man of War dogs too, but I got back in it again. So now I'm back in it. I don't have American Bulldogs yet, but definitely thinking about getting some. I don't know yet. Got Corsos, and really gonna take that to the next level. I'm gonna try to. But again, for you guys to say that the American Bulldog didn't come in these colors, they did. Tux Tiger Lady was a black brindle dog. Scott's Dixie Blackjack, black brindle dog. What else? And there were so many colored dogs back then. It was so many colored dogs. Don't let no enthusiast tell you otherwise. They weren't bred with pit bulls. All of the dogs have pit bulls in them. The farmers back then, if they had game dogs, the game dogs was put inside with the American Bulldogs. It is what it is. That happened.